Becoming is better than being. And that's precisely why we consider ourselves to always be a work in progress. It means that you are never complete and you always have the opportunity to become something and, more importantly, someone better.
It allows you the ability to be comfortable with making mistakes and accepting yourself for who you are.
Yes, we are a work in progress. Hi, I'm AX.
I am GK.
And I am Hussein.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Guys, we're going into an interesting topic today, an interesting segment for most of the episode. So as you may know, the end of October, especially in the Western world, signals a type of the end of it's called
Halloween.
Halloween. Every year they celebrate and they wear costumes and try and be scary to each other. I've described it very terribly, but I think that summed it up. But what we are going to have is a discussion about what the core aspects behind the Halloween and the freakiness of Halloween are, especially in the African context. So we begin with AX bringing us a story. AX, tell us.
True. So this story is actually from one of our Breaking Fives, and it's about a shelter in Kilifi that's offering refuge for suspected witches. Right? So in essence, a lot of these suspected witches are elderly people, and the community has accused them of witchcraft because they have gray hair. Now, I don't know about you guys, but almost every single elderly person I've ever met has gray hair, right? So in essence, the way this shelter works, it kind of functions as like an old folks home, a senior center, where these people can come, be safe, get entertainment, and form a community. But it also said that the youth are also accusing these elders and are sometimes killing them for their land. So you have this, you also have like this competing interests, right? Versus like religious belief, and I earnestly believe this person is a witch versus I'm going to call you a witch so I can get your land. What do you guys think? Do you think this is fair? Do you think it's not fair? Do you think it's understandable, the fear that is?
I think the history of witches and witchcraft in Africa and out of Africa links to a need to explain things that are not explainable. I think that's the baseline so for example, if my crop succeeded, but that guy in the next shamba, his crop failed. We put water the same day, we did this the same day, we blame it on witchcraft. We blame it that this guy was cursing me. In fact, there are many households in certain parts of this country that believe totally in these curses, and to an extent it could be true, but it's a way we explain the unknown. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether I believe in witchcraft. Maybe it's because I've never experienced it.
Not that you know of, anyway.
Not that I know of. Maybe some of my biggest problems are from that. But I think witchcraft has that. It's unfair because people are using them as maybe scapegoats for their own problems and their own misgivings, and maybe they're not witches. So yeah, I don't necessarily believe it's fair, in my opinion.
Chris Sam, what do you think?
Let me start by asking you these questions.
Okay.
Do you believe that your father, your mother, your grandfather, whoever can speak words of blessing into your life?
Okay. Yes.
So if they can speak words of blessing,
they can speak curses.
There's curses. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you believe in one, then the other actually exists because the world is
it kind of works in opposites.
Now, I've watched enough news articles and news stories to kind of believe that it kind of exists. I've seen people who, after stealing, they develop like a big stomach, they start eating grass and all that. I don't know if I'm giving it too much power, but I've kind of seen
you have a healthy respect.
I remember the rumors. Do you remember after post-election violence, 2007, 2008, the footage that was going into Mombasa was talking about all these crazy things that happened to people who went looting. For example, if they went and stole a TV, then the TV got stuck on their shoulders. Things like that. Yeah,
it's true. Okay. Now, the reason I was asking whether if you believe they can speak blessing, they can speak curses, is because even back in the old days, we used to have people called waganga. Now, waganga is not Ochawi. Mganga is a traditional healer and all that. So they would use herbs and nini and call to the ancestors to help cure you. Yeah. But then also from that, there arose wachawi, now witchcraft. Yeah. So, because the older people used to practice
these older traditional
Uganga, right? Now, when I think Western medicine developed, they became almost redundant. So some of them, this is me thinking as a youth in Kilifi, right? Some of them had to make a living somehow. So some of them chose to go into the dark magic and all this nonsense. Is it fair? It's not fair to kill someone because of because especially if there's no proof,
Yeah.
it's not fair to kill them. So I think what that shelter is doing is a good thing.
Okay.
Giving them
Protecting them.
shelter.
Yeah.
Kuja
So
care
I think in your discussion, I think you've touched on something really interesting, the distinction between like good magic and bad magic, which leads me to ask you a question. What exactly is witchcraft? Do you guys know?
Witchcraft is using dark power
It's
or
dark.
dark
It's
magic
never just magic general.
Yes.
It's dark.
to harm someone or bring
Okay.
harm to someone in their life. That's what I think.
Me, witchcraft is just using the elements in a different way to change people's existence,
Okay.
to change their being, to change certain things about them.
So interestingly, like there actually are two definitions
Okay.
of witchcraft. You have the one that I guess is perhaps the most traditional,
Okay.
which is a person who has inborn powers that they use to influence or harm others. And then you have the definition that took hold once the colonizers came.
Yeah.
And they started to use the word witchcraft to demonize traditional African religions and to call them primitive. They started to use the word witchcraft for anything that was unchristian.
Yeah.
And I believe like that is the definition of witchcraft that we have been stuck with. Yeah. So
Do you know before science was considered magic and witchcraft to the unexplainable? Something that people did that was sort of unexplainable was considered to be witchcraft.
No, actually, yeah. I think there's a quote from somebody that says, "Any technology that is sufficiently advanced will to someone's eyes be considered magic."
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think if you were to contact some of the uncontacted tribes of the Amazon
Yeah.
or the Andaman Islands, you show them a phone, they would think that's magic. They
Yeah.
would think that's witchcraft. So I think maybe it's a matter of perception. Is that what
Maybe
you're trying
it's
to
a
say?
matter of perception. But we're also in a community that heavily believes in spirits and the impact of spirits in our lives. Many people, I think there's a specific community in Kenya that have jewelry they wear to sort of
Ward off the spirits.
ward off the spirits, the evil spirits from harming them.
The blue eye thing?
I don't know. I just
No, that's everywhere. I believe, even when I was younger, I heard my grandmother telling my aunts, when you give birth to a child, you first go and get pig oil or pig's oil or something like that.
Okay.
Supposed to take kidogo, then I think you rub kidogo on forehead. It's something about some people have the evil eye.
Yeah.
And so when you give birth to a child, before this child is introduced into the world, you have to do some things traditionally.
them.
Yes, or to protect them. I believe even in the Muslim faith, and if I'm wrong, you'll correct me.
Yeah.
They're supposed to apply wanja, and wanja helps them with they don't know, the evil eye from someone else or something like that.
Yes.
It's something that is ingrained in us as Africans, and Islam is not even African. It's a global faith. So
Yeah.
I think there's something there. For all of us to believe that we all have some fundamental beliefs, and whether we believe in witchcraft in our format that we know, or witchcraft in Western culture, Arabian culture, every community or every society believes in witchcraft in their own way.
Okay, so now that we are living in a modern world in which people no longer need to maybe seek out the services of a witch doctor, why do you think some people still continue to go out and seek these services?
I think it's because they believe in them.
Okay.
It's quite clear that many of the things, and I don't think it's a wrong thing to believe in them. It's just believing in something that's different from what people believe in, and seeing it, especially if they've seen and experienced it, they believe in it. Also, to an extent, it's to try and give yourself a leg up. In this world, there are very few opportunities we have to give ourselves an example, an advantage that doesn't require us to work extremely hard. So if you can give yourself a leg up, using the spirits to push someone down so that you can step on their leg and move up, or different ways, then it's an advantage to them. So I think those are the two reasons, in my opinion.
Okay, Tristan?
Okay, I'll piggyback on what he has said. When it comes to the witchcraft and the traditional African way of approaching these things, one of the gravest punishment is death. And what you're told is, if you don't do this, you will die. They don't tell you you'll die within 2 weeks, you'll die within 2 years. So you could be just doing your normal things, you get knocked down by a car, you die, and they take that as a win. They say, you see, we said he would die, and he's
died,
dead. So that's because of us. So it has created fear. And number two, is also because of helplessness in the society. I feel like if you do harm to me, I take that case up to the police station and all that. It doesn't work. 2 days later, you're free, and I'm left with my tormentor there. So if both of us have some form of belief in the dark arts, so to speak, if I tell you, okay, now since you did me wrong and you're not going to restore me back, we'll go to this mganga and he'll be the person to adjudicate this case.
Okay, so globally, one of the most considered forms of witchcraft, especially from what we see in our TV screens, and it's been sort of appropriated by the West to represent African culture, is voodoo or vodou. And that's what, it's a huge thing. In fact, in New Orleans, they have the dances, they have the dolls.
In Haiti, it's an official religion.
In Haiti, it's an official religion. So what do you guys think now? Let's move the discussion from just witchcraft to the whole concept of voodoo. Where do you think voodoo came from? Do you know?
So actually, voodoo is kind of very interesting from a historical perspective. The term itself derives from a word meaning spirit or god in the Fon or Ewe languages of West Africa. And voodoo as a religious belief, it's a meshing together of Catholicism and African spiritual beliefs.
Yes.
And it comes from Haiti, specifically when the enslaved were living in Haiti. Yes.
The West Africans moved through the slave trade. Were moved via the slave trade. And they mixed their religions with the practices.
Yes. Because the second they got there, the traditional African beliefs were outlawed. You literally could not worship in the way you used to worship when you were back home. And they were forced to become Catholics. And a lot of them didn't want to because they saw it as a colonization of the mind. They were like, no, I want to stick to myself. I want to keep something that is just for me. So what they did was, in order to practice their African beliefs on the DL, they would blend them together with Catholicism. And you see this happening in cultures all around the world. For example, there are a lot of like saints in Latin America that are actually based off of pre-colonial traditional beliefs. And the reason why I particularly like voodoo as a religious belief is because it is a direct response to the threat of imperialism and slavery. Voodoo was immensely important in the Haitian Revolution. It was a primary way through which the enslaved could reassert their humanity. In fact, in the words of the supreme chief of voodoo, yes, Haiti has a supreme chief of voodoo. His name was Max Beauvoir. And he says that voodoo says, no, I am not a cow. Cows cannot dance, cows do not sing, cows cannot become God. Not only am I a human being, I'm considerably more human than you. Watch me create divinity in this world that you have given me that is so ugly and hard. Watch me become God before your very eyes.
So what? Wow, number one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Something that is really interesting is that there's two different pronunciations and spellings of voodoo. There's vodou, which is what AX has explained.
V-O-D-O-U.
V-O-D-O-U. That is the practice, the spirit, the religion. But there's also the appropriation, which is what most of us know. And we just call it voodoo. V-O-O-D-O-O. Which is now what they see in the West. For example, one of my favorite movies, I'm a James Bond lover. There's one movie that was called Live and Let Die from the 1960s, 70s, long ago. And the funny thing about it is they had really badly appropriated voodoo. They'd gotten the guy shaking like a crazy thing. So what do you guys think about how the West has portrayed this spiritual religion? What do you think, Chris?
I'll start by going back to the Haiti thing. And for most people, they think that voodoo is for the uncultured and the unclean masses. But do you know there's a leader in Haiti? He was called Papa Doc Duval. He used to be a dictator. He used to be.
He believed he was a supreme.
He was the president for life. He actually got that
declared it
in the constitution. Yes. So this person, he was called Papa Doc because he was a Western trained doctor in the US. But when he came back home, he used to practice voodoo. He was an ardent practice of
sorry to chime in, but he actually modeled the way he dressed out of one of the voodoo spirits called Baron Samedi. So just like how Baron Samedi would wear like a dark coat, a top hat, look really suave, he would mimic that style exactly. Just to definitely like ingrain the parallels in the minds of the Haitians.
With a fedora.
Yes.
So with regards to the Western people appropriating African culture. What's new?
Exactly.
They've done that so many times. Blackface, all that. There's a wrestler who used to be called Papa Shango.
Oh dear.
There's another one who's American. he would be painted. Yes, he was a big guy. And they would call him the brute from Uganda or something like that. Yes, he was billed as having been from Uganda. And then the best way for them to portray as a Uganda was to paint like
the white things and the lines and everything.
So there's nothing new. Am I offended? Maybe, but I don't expect too much from the rest, so maybe.
Allow me to explain how the transition from voodoo ending with an OU to voodoo ending in double O happened. And I'll be very, 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 very quick about this. So in essence, the US occupied Haiti from 1915 to 34, I think.
Okay.
And in that time, there's a lot of cultural exchange happening.
Yes.
At which point, a lot of the American soldiers that were stationed there came to know of voodoo.
Yeah.
And then they took it back home with them, specifically to New Orleans. At which point, the white community in New Orleans were like, this is scary, this is witchcraft, I don't want it. And so they were trying to find a way to take away its power.
Darker.
Yeah. So they make it darker and darker because people are fascinated by that stuff and found a way to make money from it.
Yeah.
And that's how voodoo with an OU became voodoo with a double O. Yeah.
Okay, so my final question for for both of you guys is: can you reconcile a culture or a religion like voodoo with the leading religions of the world? That's Christianity, Islam, and so on. Can they work together?
I'm going to say yes, partly because in Haiti there's a saying that everyone is that Haitians are 70% Catholic, 30% Protestant, 100% Voodoo. So if they found a way to make it work, I fundamentally believe that you can make it work.
What do you think, Riza?
Can you mix oil and water? That's my answer. You can't.
Okay, you see, now I have taken AX's side because yes, I have. Because a big chunk of Haitian people practice religion, and it brought me back to what I think of home. Many people at home, based on their identity currently, were Christians first, and then they decided they wanted to experience and express their own traditional religions. That is the ones they had before Christianity came in. But they still believe in Christianity. They believe in the God. They believe in the whole story of the Bible. However, they just don't necessarily practice it the way we think. And what they've done is sort of omit certain parts of the practice that they felt to have been against the Bible. So, and it's not the only ones. You know, another African sort of religion that was created because of a need for identity, just like voodoo, Rastafarianism.
Yeah.
Have you thought Rastafarianism is a religion that's created based on what? It does work with other cultures as well.
But you see, it doesn't work because you're saying I have to sanitize it. I have to take certain aspects of it out so that it can merge with another one.
Yeah.
If they're to work together, it means I take 100% of this, 100% of this,
yes.
and you mesh it and you go. But now, if I have to, as a Christian, doing this, it's okay in this side, but it's questionable here. Then it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it means one of them will take precedence.
Yeah, precedence.
But the other so doesn't.
Okay, so I think that's where we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after the break with another Breaking Five special. Welcome back to Work in Progress. And now, as we conclude the show, we've had a whole discussion about voodoo and witchcraft. So let's end with something light. AX, there's a story you were telling us about.
This is something that I actually came across very recently, and I found it interesting for many different reasons, and we'll get to why I found it interesting. But in essence, you know how when President Kenyatta went to the UK and came back with UK goodies?
Yes.
And one of the goodies was the fact that Kenyan nurses could now work in the UK.
Yes.
Unfortunately, those Kenyan nurses went through the application process. When time came for the English test, only 10 people passed. Out of how many? 300.
Oh my goodness.
That is a pass rate of about 3%.
Okay.
And it got me wondering, why is it so low? Is it that our people don't know English? Or is it that the test was too hard? Were they ill-prepared? What do you guys think?
I automatically think that the test was too hard. I think there's a difference between language efficiency and language proficiency.
Okay.
When they're looking for language proficiency, and maybe we're not that proficient, but we're efficient in the language. It makes sense and we can understand each other 100%. I'm sure they can understand a British gentleman who has a problem. They can understand what they're saying. Maybe they won't be able to spell correctly or may make a few errors here, may put the I when it should be the me. But how does that make
here's the thing, in medicine, those tiny differences add up to a really big thing.
Or will the English gentleman understand the nurse, though?
So I think...
For me, I'm just telling the nurses, welcome to this side of the aisle. As a lawyer, I know a thing or two about KSL. A lot of lawyers go to KSL and only a minute few. So, I mean, that's on a lighter note. But yeah, it happens. The British ones, they know what they want, and if what they want you don't have, too bad.
But sometimes I think it's just overcomplicated. Let me give you guys a story.
Okay.
So one day in our school we had prize giving day.
Okay.
And so we heard when I was a young boy that this guy was coming to speak, and everyone was so excited. His name PLO Lumumba. So he came into the school and he gave a thriving speech. Everyone was so vibrant. We went home and I told Dad, PLO Lumumba came and gave us a speech. And he asked me, okay, What did he say? I have no idea. And
But whatever he said moved you.
it moved me. So my whole point is, and it may not be well crafted, but my whole point is that sometimes we these tests, because if you look at the proficiency, it'll ask you active versus whatever,
Passive,
constructive. Those tests are made to weed out immigrants from entering these places, not because they can't understand or you can't understand them, but it's just as a way to measure out. So what if you're given these goodies, but they know that the way they're going to backstop it and the way they're going to reduce and make sure a number of us don't come is to give us a complicated English test that only PLO Lumumba can win.
So I've actually had experience with these tests. I've had to take them multiple times in order to get visas. And
they're hard.
They're hard in the easiest way, if that's the way it makes sense. It's things that you learn when you're in like primary school, secondary school, like basic grammar. But because by the time you're in high school and taking that test, you've kind of forgotten all those basic rules. It's very, very hard.
And you forget how far some of these people have come from. Do you guys remember the video of that Kalenjin athlete who was given an interview in English and you remember the what he was saying? This is the progress they've come from so far. We've come from so far that maybe the proficiency, think of it this way. How many British can speak 3 or 4 languages?
None.
3 or 4 languages.
You see, that's okay. Maybe they can't.
Yeah.
But the issue is if they want to come and work in Kenya, and we've said you have to speak a certain Swahili at a certain level. Now it's upon them to make sure that they are good enough in whatever it is that you're asking, that level of Swahili. So I will not sit here and blame the British for having a hard exam. They want something. If we can't deliver in the exact way that they want.
So do you think then we should sort of alter sort of our admissions for these people? For example, when the Cuban doctors were coming, they had translators and all those made available for them so that they can do their job. But when it's now us going, they can't give us a little leeway so that we can get proficient in those languages.
No, let's blame them. You know what? In that regard, we as Kenyans, we are very accommodating.
Yes.
We are very
Kenya.
Yeah, we are very neighborly. So we'll do everything in our part to accommodate them.
Yeah.
They don't have to. They are first world country. They'll behave how they want. Imagine if in the UK they were like that. Everyone in the world will want to go there. So they must have a way of sieving out people, and that's their way. But as Kenyans, we are very accommodating, and the Cuban doctors can actually attest to that.
I mean, I just hope that the ministry, the people who are taking these nurses through this process, are learning from this and are figuring out a way to better support the nurses that continue to apply for this program. I
remember the CS said something about that. He said they renegotiate afresh, but then he said at least as a minimum, let's pass the test first. Once we pass that, then they can have other negotiations, government to government, and maybe it will become easier in the future for nurses to leave Kenya and go work in the UK.
Okay, fantastic. So that is where we will end today's Work in Progress. Thank you so much for watching the show, and we will be here with you next time.
Bye.